Chip said that young guys, y'all had some scrimmage work. What was it like from your young guys on defense?
Are you going to start this press conference, or are you going to let me start? What do you got? Go ahead.
Chip said that the young guys, y'all got some scrimmage work in with those young guys. How did that go from a defensive point of view today?
It went good. We got some good young talent, and some of the guys that we scrimmaged actually played for us. KJ Britt, Chandler Wooten, some of those guys. So it went good. We working on flying around, tackling, simple stuff, not real complicated effort to the ball, but a little spring practice mode. Went good.
Anybody catch your eye in scrimmage on defense, guys?
Yeah, they did. Good or bad?
Good.
Okay, all right. I think probably the biggest thing was that, Jordan Peters, we kind of moved him around a little bit, played him a little bit at corner, played him a little bit at star, a little bit at safety. So he did. KJ, Chandler, Truesdale, Big Cat Bryant. Alex Jackson, is a big man. He's got a long way to go, but he's a big body with good athleticism. So, and there's probably some guys I'm missing, but that'll give you a start.
TD's played a lot for you guys, especially late in the year. How have you seen him kind of progress?
Well, early in the thing, he had a little injury and was progressing very nice. The injury set him back, so kind of put him in a hole a little bit. And then we started feeding him a little bit more at Buck. And by the end of the year, he was a very, very effective pass rusher for us, but had started to really play the run technique at another level. And he's young, still got a ways to go, but he's got a high motor, he's got tremendous athleticism, he's a tough guy, and he loves ball. So we got a good start.
When you start going into practices for the bowl game, how much, you already do, but how much do you turn to seniors like Trey Matthews and everybody that this is their last game here to get everybody going just in the locker room?
Well, emotion, that comes from emotion in terms of the emotional thing that it's your last game. I don't really think that has a whole lot to do with the game, much past the locker room and maybe the first snap. But the leadership that those guys provide because of what they've done all year long, but particularly the senior leadership, the Trey Matthews, the Trey Williams, the Stephen Roberts, Nick Ruffin, those guys, they're good leaders. And so I think the leadership is more the part of it than actually just the emotion of the last game.
Kevin, when you look back at it, what was different in the championship game than what had been happening in November?
Well, they scored 28 points as opposed to 17. They ran the ball effectively, particularly on the outside. We had some misfits on some things, and a couple of times didn't tackle particularly well. I'd like to tell you that they came out with some new exotic scheme, but we kind of anticipated that they were going to go to something different than the first game. So we researched 2 years worth of cut-ups, and really, all the outside scheme stuff they ran, we repped in practice. So we had rep time on task against it, but we didn't play it very well. But all that being said, even though we were not playing the very best we'd played all year, I think it was 13-6 or 13-7 going into the fourth quarter. Still had a chance to win the game, just didn't finish it off.
Have you had a chance to look at Central Florida yet? And so, what makes their offense so effective?
Yeah, well, they're of course hurry up. They're talented at the receiver, running back position. The quarterback, the trigger man, is very athletic and keeps plays alive, extends plays with his feet, both running it and throwing it. And they're well coached in the offensive line.
You've got 3 or 4 guys that are going to make NFL decisions, decidedly early. Do you know when a player's ready? Do you have a good sense of it? Do you share that with them, or do they seek you out? How involved are you in those conversations, I guess?
Well, I do know. I've been there, but it's still. There's people that they have the ability to go through a system and make a very educated decision in terms of they can, send their name in, get a grade, Those grades are done by the people that make the picks. And so, if they listen to that, if they listen to the right people, they'll make a good decision. And we want what's best for them. I mean, it's not, if they ask specific questions, then you'll answer those questions for them. If they ask for advice, you'll give it to them. But I don't think you can go at it where you're just recruiting them to stay when they got a first-round grade back. That's a little conflict there. So we're just going to support them, and hopefully they can make the best decision for them. Recruiting's built that way now anyway. I mean, when it first started and early out, it was a little different, all the juniors coming out, but you kind of build it that way now. You kind of anticipate that you will lose a certain amount of juniors each year. And so you kind of recruit that way.
How hard is it for the guys that aren't first-round picks, though, or don't get that clear grade that maybe are a third or fourth? Is that the toughest decision, you think, for those guys?
Well, I can't answer that for them. If you look at the money chart, it wouldn't be real tough for me. I'd try again, but that's me.
Kevin, just talk about the importance of finishing. You had a really great year on defense, but finishing out the way, especially again these older guys finishing it.
Yeah.
Finishing it the way you want to finish.
Well, I think this group has been a joy to coach. They've accomplished a lot of things. We've made progress from where we started 2 years ago defensively to even from where we ended last year to the end of the regular season this year. There's been a lot of progress made, a lot of maturity, a lot of understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to do it. They bought into that. And part of that is finishing. And so, when you sit there and say this team has a chance to win 11 games, hadn't been done here, or a lot of places for that matter, very often. They've got a chance to, I think somebody told me they had a chance to be the first team in the college football history to beat 3 9-0 teams in the same year, 9-0 or better. That's a pretty good feat. But there's nothing like ending it with a bowl win. It's the last game. It makes everybody feel better for a little while.
Kevin, you coached a lot of college football. What do you think of the early signing period?
Well, I've never been through one. But to this point, it's got some things that I question. It makes it difficult on us as coaches to really be thorough with our evaluation and be thorough with our recruiting process. I can't speak for what it does for the high school coaches. They'd have to speak for that if it affects them. I've heard some of them say that it does, and not necessarily in a good way. Just because it's scrunched up against their season, and they have no time to breathe in between. I'm not sure how it affects the players. There's probably, like anything else, there's some good in it, but I don't know what that is yet because I hadn't been through it completely, a complete cycle. But to this point, it's hard.
How does it affect you and the staff, you think, when you're trying to prepare for a bowl game? And
Yeah,
an SEC
well,
championship game?
not so much that. I mean, when you're playing Georgia, and Alabama, and Louisiana, Monroe, and you're stacked up in visits because guys are making a decision in 20 days, or it's hard. It's hard. You might have a couple of distance visits for the Iron Bowl or for Georgia game, but now you got to bring in as many as you can bring in because if you don't, you're not going to get a visit. So it's hard, particularly for us because we stay in Montgomery. Well, that's over 30 miles, so you can't see them on Friday night if you're over there and they're here. So it's hard.
Kevin, what kind of progress have you seen from a guy like Alec Jackson, and what did he need to work on the most, coming out?
Well, we're a little bit far, he's been redshirted, so he was on the offensive field. I don't watch that tape. I know his skill set coming out of high school. He has the skill set we're looking for. I'd like to hold that answer till at least after spring practice, but he's got the body type and the skill set.
You touched on UCF's quarterback. Does he remind you of anybody that you haven't played the last couple of years here?
Hadn't thought about it. He's got a little bit of the Shea Patterson type player, if you will, keeping plays alive, moving around the pocket, can extend plays with his legs in the run as well as the pass.
You still obviously have one more game with this senior class. You go through it every year. What has this senior group meant to you in these first 2 years here for you at Auburn, turning things around?
Yeah, well, both senior classes, you know, even back to Montravius, and I count Carl in that, and Hosley, and you know, those guys, all of them. They helped set the tone the first year. These guys have built on it. You know, they're a special group. There's not very many of them. You know, when you stand up in the room and it's, you know, 4 guys, that's a good thing in some ways. But they're really good leaders. They're hard workers. They coach the young players as hard as we coach them, and that's part of the standard. They bought into it, and they demand and command the standard from their teammates, their young teammates, and they do it in the right way. They come to work every day and set an example. They're fun guys.
You feel like you have some good candidates to follow in their footsteps to coach up the guys that you saw
We do.
raise up here at the end of the year?
We do. You know, I know you got at least one, because there's one that thinks he should be the coordinator, and that's Deshaun, and he probably could do it, and probably do a pretty good job. So yeah, we've got some young ones that can. Yeah.
Trey Williams talked to him after the bowl game. He said the season was hard for him, almost mentally as much as physically, with the injuries he was going through. Did you see how hard it was for him, just with the starts and stuff?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've seen it enough times. When you got a guy that's his last year and he's fighting through and battling through injuries, you know, that's a strain on him. And but the guy, he was a great example to the young guys, because he practiced with, you know, when they would let him go, he practiced just like he always did. And he set a good example of fighting through, you know, when he was limited.
In a similar way, Kevin, when you answered the Alec Jackson question, Chip said those young offensive linemen in the red shirt, you know, they've been on the defensive field.
Right.
So when you watch that tape every day, are there any of those offensive linemen where you go, that kid's going to be a player? Really?
Yeah, there is. I'd rather reserve that right. And I'm not trying to avoid your question, but you know, I'm gonna fish in my pond. And but I will say that there's a group of guys that you know, they're going against a pretty good defensive line every day. We do 1-on-1, 3-on-3. It's not just team setting where they're on cards. They've grown, matured, become physical, and I think they understand. And when you line up across from Dontavius Russell, you'll learn, you know, it's a whole lot easier to attack this thing than it is to sit and catch it, because you sit and catch it is painful. And so they've learned to fight.
Again, a lot of people might think being on the scout team would be a loss to you, but how valuable is that? Like you said, you get to go against the best of the best every day.
Well, you know, you could be, it's a double-edged sword. You could be like me, where you do it for 3 years and ain't so good. But, you know, if you do it for 1 year, I think it helps you grow to understand college football at the level, because rather than going over and being a backup and getting minimal reps against a scout team defense, they're lining up against, you know, Marlon Davis and Jeff Holland, Dontavius Russell and Derek Brown, you know, and Nick Coe every snap. That'll make you better.
Stats are stats, but at the end of the day, is there any motivation or even talk about let's finish a year as a top 10 defense and having to do it against an explosive offense like UCF?
Sure. I mean, we have goals that we go over with our team. It's not so much the totality of total offense and total run game and total. Ours is yards per carry, per rush, yards per attempted pass. But if you're good in that, then it will reflect in the total number. We don't put up, okay, we're 14th or 10th or 9th. We put our goal up every week of what the standard is, and then we show if we made it or not. But it's based off of yards per carry and that kind of stuff. That's a little bit. And the stats are good. I'm not against the stats. I'm not getting in the stat business. But, you know, when it's based on rushing yards, and maybe you played 3 Georgia Tech games, you know, well, that's a little bit different than saying, okay, 3.46 yards per carry, per attempt, you know. That's a little more true to what we're trying to accomplish.
Does that vary week to week based on the opponent?
No, it does not. It does not. We just feel like that we have, what we do is that's on a sliding scale yearly. We take the top 10 numbers and set it off of that from the year before. Otherwise, we used to keep it the same for years. I've been coaching long enough, you just kept it the same. But, you know, it changed drastically when offense changed. You know, it's kind of hard to go in there and say, okay, we're going to hold everybody to 125 yards passing. Well, 30 years ago, that was pretty good. Now that's first quarter. You know, so kind of had to adjust it off of the previous top 10 year before. Scoring's the same thing. You know, many of y'all here remember we're scoring defense. If you wasn't holding them to 12 or below, you wasn't even close to the top 20. Now, if you hold them below 20, you'll be in the top 10, you know, or close. That's just the way the game's changed.
Kevin, Jordan Peters, how would you evaluate his freshman season? Is he a guy that you're going to rely on to be a much bigger contributor next year?
Well, yeah, I think we ended the year that way, though, because Jordan played a good bit. I mean, I think the first third down in the Iron Bowl on a very, very good wide receiver, he made a play on. And I mean, that's pretty critical in the game. So we rely on him. I think he's earned that to this point, not just for next year.
Anything else?
Good?
All right, Coach.
All right.